We're talking with Lisa Delonas. She is the principal at Pocatello High School. Let's move on because, like I said, I think this is probably water under the bridge. There's a lot of residual frustration, and in fact, there's even a recall campaign that's underway against the school board. But I want to talk about the process of choosing the new mascot, because this isn't now a new controversy where a process was put out for suggestions. People have been surveyed. Some of the suggestions, there were 9 suggestions for a new mascot, including Bison, Eagles, Falcons, Mountain Lions, Mustangs, Phantoms, Stampede, Thunder, and Wolves. So it's been put up there for the community to weigh in and people to share their opinions. Yet, Principal Delonas, I've got some what appear to be pictures, images, and photos that have been taken of letters that you've written or emails that you've written. It sounds like it's already in the bag that Bison has been chosen. Can you verify that you've written some of these emails where Bison? Well, I'll just read one. It's rather short. You wrote, and I don't know who it's written to. That's been blocked out. If these are not your words, then feel free to deny it. But you said, I don't think we have to get rid of feathers as decor just because we are the Bison. They are not mutually exclusive. Feathers are pretty neutral to me, sort of trendy at the moment. They are not any sort of consideration for me. I'll also probably get rid of the sentence, we never have. So going back to that, it sounds to me like Bison has already been chosen. Is that the case?
No, not at all. In fact, when I was speaking with my faculty about this, of course, one of the first things people want to do is, well, if we're not the Indians, what are we going to be? And so, there's been lots of discussion amongst my faculty about what would we become. And, I don't know if this will make sense to you, but I'm an artist. Okay, so in my spare time, I paint and I do glass work, and I have a deep appreciation for art. And so, I oftentimes think about the imagery and the story that can be told behind something. And so I had come up with, had been thinking, oh, gosh, what are we going to be? And I had been thinking about, this narrative where we could have, this story about, the Indian chief has carried the responsibility of being the mascot for Pocatello High School for, many, many years, and it's time for him to pass that on, and he would pass this responsibility on to this great animal. And, I came up with a bison, because I had read somewhere that he called himself Buffalo Robe, and I was using that as an example with my faculty, like, this could be a really nice narrative if we ended up choosing an animal that would make sense. Now if you choose giraffes, then it wouldn't make sense. He would never pass it off to a giraffe. There's no giraffes here. And, and so I was using that as an example, and that's been taken completely out of context. It was never shared formally or with anybody outside of, just a small little group of people, my staff, and then, maybe some district office people, like, what if I, presented a narrative? Do you like this narrative? I'm just, trying to get a feel for making this a really positive transition. And so that's just been taken out of.
And okay, so sometimes what you're saying then, and I thought about this possibility when I read this email, that sometimes you put something forward as a hypothetical, and for the sake of discussion, you just sort of assume that that's the reality just for the duration of the discussion, right? Is that what this was?
Correct.
Okay.
And then we went through many. Could you do that with wolves? Sure. You could pass on the responsibility of the mascot with a wolf. Could you do that with, animal after animal? Certainly, you could do that. The only one I think we really couldn't do that with is phantoms. But, a lot of community members submitted phantoms as a mascot option. And so we felt, if there's that many people that think phantoms are a good option, then we should leave that in there, even though it wouldn't fit with the narrative. We would just have to create a different narrative or just not have a narrative. But, it's
so,
just ideas swirling around.
Later, and there's another email, part of this same email thread, I'm assuming. This was back on August 22nd. I guess earlier, I'm looking at the timestamp now. You had said, thank you, no issues with using Bison. And almost as though it is a foregone conclusion, but was it just the idea that you were vetting, like, what do you think about bison, but you used no issues with using bison? I mean, is that fair to say that maybe it's Lisa Delonas's favorite pick, and that's what you'd like to put forward, but it by no means that's what it's going to be and is the final decision?
No, absolutely not. And that email was sent to a Native American leader, a community leader that I had met through Leadership Pocatello, and I wanted to make sure, because one of my staff members had said, eagles and bison are important animals, so would those be problematic? Like, they felt like we were, I don't know, just, sort of, I don't know, choosing something that, was still problematic for them. And so I had just reached out because, the last thing I want to do is jump from one fire into another. And so it was like, these are some options. And, and she said, no issue with any, or she didn't comment on the options. And then, I was like, well, no issue with bison. And I don't think, in a later email, or maybe it was in a conversation, I asked her about eagles. Now, of course, I didn't ask about mountain lions and wolves because I didn't think that, those were animals that needed to be checked on. But, to my knowledge, eagles and bison were the only two that had come up that I had thought with my staff. Now, this was before the public, started submitting ideas.
So
that, I just say, is that
You and I both know, Principal Delonas, that I mean, the politics and culture, it changes over time. The Pocatello Indians was not offensive a certain number of years ago, and so but it became that way, and so if you choose something that is tied into Native American imagery, like bison or eagles, maybe today they say, oh yeah, we're not offended by that. That would be great. It would be an honor. But there may be a future day, and it may not be that long in the distance, where they may say, we're kind of offended that here's this predominantly white community that is using a sacred Native American image or animal as their high school athletics mascot. You can easily see it evolving into that, right?
Well, I think there's a possibility, of anything becoming important to a group of people and then saying, hey, this is important to us. We do not do that anymore. And, I think that's part of just human experience. And I would hope that if that becomes a problem in the future, that there's,
right,
talk about why is that an issue. I have a hard time envisioning that there would be research supporting that an animal mascot, a particular animal mascot, is problematic for a group of people. But, anything's possible. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say, no, it's never possible that something can become a problem. But, this wasn't, for me or for the school board or the school district, based on opinion. This was based on, there's a lot of research that supports this. There's a lot of studies that have been done that show how harmful this is. And so, we need to do this.
I think it would be fascinating to maybe have another discussion to talk about the idea of harm or offense, because, you use the term research. That's a very scientific term, but so much of this is also subjective as well, about the impacts or opinions or about what level of an offense there is. But we really don't have time for that. I do want to ask you specifically about the process of choosing the mascot, because there are 9 suggested mascots here. One of them was Phantoms, as you mentioned before. What is the process here? Because it doesn't sound like the survey is going to be given, and whichever one comes out on top, that's the one that will be selected. So what criteria will the school board use, especially following a process where essentially they were told, we're not going to listen to the community in making a decision? Does the community have any reason to believe they're actually going to be listened to in choosing the new mascot, and why would they?
Well, but we have said that that's where we felt that it was appropriate to have community input, and we've opened up the input. I mean, it's kind of like casting a vote, but it's not a true vote where the winner wins. It could be because the winner wins, but the process is we've got the 9, and really 3 of those are if people watch the videos, which I hope they are. 3 of those are really tied to Bison because we had so many entries for Bison that people would say, well, we could be the Thunder with the Bison image, or we could be the Stampede with the Bison image, or we could just be Bison. And so if you watch the videos that the kids presented, the video, the first one is for Thunder, Bison, or Stampede, but we wanted all people to also be able to say, but we like this verbiage better, even though it's all really kind of Bison.
Okay, so 3 of the 9 are all Bison then.
Essentially, at least the Bison imagery.
Okay.
One you're directly called the Bison, the other one you're called the Thunder. But your imagery, which is really important. You need imagery. I mean, if you're Thunder, what would you put on there? Storm clouds. I mean, you're going to wear storm clouds on your uniform. That doesn't. It just seems, imagery is important.
Yeah, so, lightning. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do with it. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So right now you can go to several different places on the district Facebook or website, Pocatello High School's website, and you vote for your top 3, and whatever comes out as the top 3, those will go to the school board. There's a committee that consists of people from alumni, some parents, a coach, a couple of teachers that have been reading through all the submissions and narrowed it down to those. And so whatever comes out of the top 3 with this community input will go to the school board, and the committee will outline, okay, these are the pros and the cons and the imagery and the ideas that would go along with each one, and then the school board will make a selection based on the 3 that are presented to them.
All right. Do you feel like the community, because there's a lot that don't feel like they were represented in getting rid of the Indians mascot, do you feel like the community will feel included enough in the process of replacing the mascot?
I hope so. To date, we've got about 2,600 votes, so we've had a good response of people, going to one of the spots and selecting their top 3. So. It's open till November 1st. We left it open for almost 2 weeks so that people had plenty of time because, a lot of times you hear about something, at different times. So, 3 or 4 or 5 days may have gone by before somebody even heard that, they could go, provide their input. So we wanted it to be open, a decent amount of time so people had plenty of time to go in and weigh in. So, I hope so.
So is the running total public, or is it just being kept, people will know the results once it's final? Or can you go and see exactly where it's at right now?
No, you'll have to just see the results when it's final. I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to begin to make that open to the public. I'm not that tech savvy.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's fine. I was just curious about that. All right. And so, but the decision will not just be, I mean, they'll have the top 3, but then the board will make that decision. Do they have any specific or identifiable criteria by which they'll make the decision from those final 3?
Yeah, well, the committee came up with, criteria where basically that I think that's what they'll outline with, these are the pros and the cons of each one. And, if there were cons that were significant, they didn't make it into the selection process. So, cons might be, if Eagles came out as the top 3, the con might be that Marsh Valley is, 30 minutes from us and they're the Eagles. It's not necessarily that it's really a negative. It's just food for thought. Yeah. So, they'll present, I don't know if one of the committee members will present or if they'll fall to me. But that'll be presented, and we'll present. We'll share. There were 500 votes for this and 200 votes for that, and six. That's not. There's nothing secret here. I mean, people can.
Yeah.
They can know exactly how many people voted for what. So.
Yeah. All right. Our guest today has been Lisa Delonas, principal at Pocatello High School, and I know I kept you much longer than I said I would, so I appreciate your time in joining us today. Thank you, Principal Delonas.
Well, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.